Hello everybody, welcome back to another World of Warships Blitz video. This video is the follow-up video from the previous video looking at ships that can Kraken, or ships that I have managed to achieve the Kraken in. So last video I went through the cruisers, and in this video I will go through the destroyers and the battleships. And I think I'll get through the destroyers relatively quickly because A, there's not too many of them, and B, there's a bit of a theme. So this destroyer you're looking at is the Mikasa with historical camo. It is not on the list, so this has not managed to sink 5 ships, because if you remember back to the video that I had recorded around the cruisers, I said one of the key features, we'll stop this stuff going on, hold on, there we go. Right, so one of the key features is guns. So the first destroyer on the list is this one, the Tier 5 Podvoitsky. I tried to work my way up to the Tier 6 of all ships, basically so I could sell all the blueprints Tier 6 and above. And when I did, of course, the French battleship line came out, and I was caught short of blueprints, so I've sort of got a whole lot of ship lines to Tier 6. And I'm now backed up with hundreds of blueprints. But anyway, the Podvoitsky was part of that journey. I went from the Izyaslav Tier 4 to the Podvoitsky Tier 5, and the Podvoitsky was fantastic. I had a fantastic initial win rate in it. It's slowed down a bit now, and the reason this makes it onto the list, obviously, is because it's done 5 kills. I've had 96 games on it. It's only got a 12% most valuable player rate, and to be fair, often the Podvoitsky's lower down on the target list of the enemy. So if you're in a Fubuki, or let's say a Mikasa, and you get spotted, you get a lot of attention. If you're in a Podvoitsky and you get spotted, especially at range, you don't get a lot of attention. You're sort of like the guy that they'll basically deal with once they've dealt with all the really dangerous stuff, which means that you can make it to the end of the game. You've got those guns, so if you are clever at finishing off, you can achieve 5 kills, and I have in this. The next destroyer that has achieved 5 kills, you see a theme developing here, is the Gnevny. So 113 games, 18% most valuable player rate. So the high most valuable player rate means that I've put it above the Podvoitsky. The big difference between the Podvoitsky at Tier 5 and the Gnevny at Tier 6, well, there's 3 big differences. Number 1 is that the third slot you can take concealment, and concealment is a great way of being in better control of the battle. Number 2, you're up against tougher ships, which can change gameplay a little bit. And number 3, you get rapid reload, which, remember I talked about one of the features that I find for getting those 5 kills is they usually fall to gunfire. The next destroyer on the list is in the tech tree. Told you there was a theme, and this surprised me because I have only had 27 games in this. Its win rate is higher than the Gnevny, so I actually didn't rate this as a very good ship. And this is one of the crazy things, right? So there are ships that I don't rate as very good ships. The Kraken is a very good example of a ship that I rate as a very, very average ship. But when I look at the win rate, they do pretty well. So this did pretty well. Not to say that I'm buying it back, but it's got an 80% most valuable player rate. But the reason that I've stuck it higher up the list than the Gnevny is that it just took less battles to get there. So 27, and one of them I killed 5 enemies, and I can bet you that I finished off 5 enemies. I didn't take 5 enemies from full health down to nothing. These Russian destroyers, yeah, sometimes they are scavengers. So we're almost finished with the destroyers. There is one more on the list. This one has not achieved 5 kills. This has achieved 6, and it is the Akazuki. And did I have to mention that gunfire is an important part of achieving 6 kills? I have posted the video for this, and if I can find it, I'll stick it in the links below. So you can see the sort of the desperate scrap that gets you 6 kills in one battle, and it was desperate. Those final kill occurred in the final second as the destroyer was nose into an island, trying to lever itself around, and the final turrets could get an arcing shot over a little headland at a destroyer that's just about to disappear from sight in the last second of the game. That was the 6th kill. So this is in exalted company, It's one of the very few ships, one of the 2 ships I've had that have achieved 6 kills. That is the destroyers. So the Podvoytsky, the Gnevny, the Izyaslav, so the Russian tier 4, 5 and 6, and the Akazuki, the Japanese gunboat tier 8 with 3-second reload. Let us put some filters on because we're about to go and talk about battleships. So the first battleship, well, the first battleship that I've put on the list is the Bismarck. So it's got a 12% most valuable player rate, win rate of 53%. When I look this up, it might be a little bit lower now. 299 games, so it took a long time to get there, not a great most valuable player rate. Basically with the Bismarck is the special occasion is if there's no destroyers in the game, the Bismarck shines. If there's lots of destroyers in the game, then the Bismarck really struggles. So it has poor dispersion, it's vulnerable to torpedoes, it's got slow turning, it's fantastic against other large ships, and it's really, really horrible against destroyers, which is why I don't play it that much. And spoiler alert, the Tirpitz doesn't make the list. The Tirpitz actually has a lower win rate than the Bismarck. Go figure. Anyway, that is the Bismarck. That is number 6 on the list, which will give you an idea of how many of these things we need to work through. Number 5 on the list is the Nelson. So by the time that I had taken this record, it was 99 games. I've got 1 Kraken in that since. So it has a 16% win rate at the time that I recorded this. Let's go see what... I think the win rate might have gone up a little bit. 60% win rate at a 16%, most valuable player rate and a 60% win rate. I think it may have done slightly better since then, but still. At the time when I took this, took these stats, its win rate basically put it just 1 above the Bismarck. So this is the 5th ranked ship for achieving the Exalted Kraken. Okay, we're into the tech tree. I sell a lot of ships. For number 4, this surprised me. This is a very ordinary ship that I just loved. I loved the feeling of selling this. Because basically I didn't enjoy playing it. It wasn't well armoured. It's got those side-mounted turrets. But it's got a 17% most valuable player rate. 19 battles, okay, a 51% win rate, which goes to show you why I sold it, but it has managed to knock 5 enemy ships out of action in a single game. So that makes the list at number 4. At number 3, we're still in the tech tree, guys. At number 3, we have the South Carolina. Now, the South Carolina makes this list. It's got a 26% most valuable player rate. That's because it's got 152 battles in it. And that's because before I got the Anshan or the Huang Hei, or before I learned how to use them, when I needed wins and I needed them in a hurry, the South Carolina was where I went, down to tier 3. Pretty embarrassing to say. But, yeah, some of those battles, we knocked out 5 ships. And I think, to be fair, South Carolina, once you cleared away the battleships and you're dealing with the destroyers with HE, it cleans things up quite nicely. So this is one of the ships that has made the cut and managed to eliminate 3 enemy ships in a battle. Number 2 battleship should come as no surprise. I still have that in my inventory. Should come as no surprise for those people that... let's clear the filters and put it back on battleships. Number 2, what I call the metal printer, is the Mikasa. If you need a Kraken, the Mikasa is the ship most likely to achieve it, basically. The main barrier to getting a Kraken is if enemy ships decide to avoid you, if they're bots that run off to the edge of the map or something like that. This thing basically prints battle medals. Seriously, it does. It's got a 31% most valuable player rate. I've played 127 battles in it, mainly because whenever the game tells me that I need to destroy 2 cruisers in a battle, that to me is translated as, you haven't taken your Mikasa out for a couple of days, please go and do it. and it's a 55% win rate. Its win rate is not assisted by tier 2 and 3 games. So this ship is near invincible in a tier 1-2 game, and basically easy meat for battleships. Although it's really tanky, and it feels like absorbs damage basically like South Carolina. It just can't deal it out. In saying that, of course, it can take a premium captain, and I do have a Japanese captain who's only a few thousand points away from getting 15% improvement on the dispersion for secondaries, and that'll take the Mikasa from extremely mean and dangerous into quite lethal territory. However, it is only number 2 for a reason, because there is a number 1. And the number 1 is, down at tier 3. This, for a while, replaced my South Carolina as the go-to ship for basically when I needed wins, and there wasn't a particular tier required. 96 battles, a 35% most valuable player rating, and a 73% win rate. Now, I didn't video the game in which I took down 6 ships. However, I do remember it. And unlike the Akazuki, which was desperate, frantic, and basically felt like it was on the edge of disaster, this just murdered its way to 6 victories. This is a great little ship. When the British battleships come out, I fully expect the Bellerophon to be tier 3, and I fully expect that to be just as ruthless as this little ship is. So it's a fantastic ship. It's got the historical camo, as you can see. It was an award for buying something in the shop. It's well worth it. It's a fun ship to play, and because it's a premium ship, yes, it can get my my David Beatty legendary captain on board, which let's just that doesn't hurt at all. Not if your objective is to try and get kill enemy ships. So anyway, this is my number 1 pick for battleships. If you were out to try and sink 5 ships in a battle, it definitely it's got the longer range, so it's not sort of stuck like the Mikasa. It can do consistent damage out to the edge of the range, whereas the Mikasa, you're relying on secondaries basically. The Mikasa has those main guns, but it's the secondaries that basically where the power reside. And if you don't get into secondary range, you have a pretty poor game. Anyway, I hope you found that educational. I'm sure that people will have their own ships that they've managed to get 5 kills in. And those games are particularly satisfying. I just wish that I had more videos of them to show you. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you found this valuable. Catch you next time.